and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I wanted to continue talking about tea, and actually, as many of you know, I really do enjoy tea, especially in these winter months. January and February, I don't know about you, but I find them really tough sometimes, so it's a little pleasure like tea that helps to get me through until spring. Now, the very first video that I ever did on YouTube was all about how to create the perfect afternoon tea at home, where I shared how to set the table, how to arrange your flowers, and basically just how to throw a tea party that would be as wonderful as visiting a hotel or a restaurant. I've also made a scone recipe video, and of course last week I did a video all about how to properly brew tea, but I've never done a video to show you how to make tea sandwiches, so that is what I thought I would do today. The lovely thing about tea sandwiches is that they are so delicate and pretty and really fit well with the whole thing of afternoon tea. Afternoon tea is a really special occasion, and you would expect nothing less than having the crusts removed on your sandwiches and for them to be cut into little fingers, which just makes the whole thing so much nicer than having a regular sandwich. So yeah, I'm going to show you how to do these sandwiches, how to cut them properly so that you can create your own tea party at home. I'm also going to be showing you how to bake a classic Victoria sponge cake. Now, this is a real crowd pleaser for afternoon tea. It's so simple but delicious, and everyone seems to really enjoy it. And my recipe is a vegan one, but actually people who taste this cake who aren't vegan cannot tell, and they always ask me for the recipe. So I would implore you to try this recipe, because I can guarantee that you will really love it. It's moist, delicious, and the perfect accompaniment for afternoon tea. I also wanted to let you know that I've now created an afternoon tea playlist here on my channel, where all of the videos about tea are. So we have the how to create the perfect afternoon tea at home, my scone recipe video, last week's how to brew tea, and then this one here, how to create sandwiches and a Victoria sponge cake. So that is the go-to destination if you need to know how to have a tea party at home. So go ahead, check it out, and I think it will be really useful. Now, I know a lot of you will be thinking, why is Nick telling us how to make a sandwich? Anyone knows how to make one. And you're absolutely right. I'm not here to teach you how to make a sandwich. I'm just here to show you how you can make a sandwich that is more suitable for afternoon tea. So I've got a few hints and tricks for that, and also the recipes here are really simple, but there are a few little changes that I make to my sandwich recipes just to give them a little bit more excitement and a little bit more taste. So stick around, and I hope that you will enjoy this video. Probably the most classic English tea sandwich is a cucumber one, and I know it sounds maybe a little bit boring, but there's just something about a cucumber sandwich with a cup of tea that is just pure bliss. So cucumber is probably my favourite sandwich to have when I'm having tea, and also because it's very light, it means that you can then go on to enjoy scones and your cakes without being too full. So I'm going to show you my cucumber sandwich, which has a lemon and dill butter with it, which just makes it a little bit more interesting. But either way, whether you have it just plain or with this butter, it's always beautiful. So in this bowl I have some vegan butter again, but again you could use regular butter. Then I have some fresh dill and some lemon rind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about a teaspoon of this dill, and I'm going to throw that into the butter, and then I'm going to take a teaspoon of the lemon rind, throw that, maybe a little bit more, and we're just going to mix this together now. There we go. Just mix it around like this. So now I have the cucumber and dill and lemon butter, and I'm going to just spread the butter onto the bread. And this is such a fresh butter, and it really is delicious with the cucumber. So I think you will really enjoy this combination, and it really is so simple. As you can see, I just whipped this up in a few minutes. It's just a case of chopping your dill and getting the rind of the lemon, and after that it's just mixing it all together and assembling your sandwich. So I've spread that, and now I'm going to take the cucumber and just place it onto the bread, gently overlapping like that. And that is pretty good. So this goes on here, and now we are going to remove the crusts, which is the classic way to make an English tea sandwich. My main tip for when you are slicing your sandwiches to remove the crusts is to refrigerate the bread before you do it, because it kind of makes the bread a little bit more firm and stops it from squishing down. Or you can assemble a sandwich like this, refrigerate it for maybe an hour or so, and then before you're ready to serve them, you can slice it then. You also need a very sharp knife. So we're basically going to get rid of the crusts. And this is what makes tea so delightful, because there's nothing nicer than beautiful little delicate finger sandwiches. So there we go. We have removed the crusts and we're left with this. And then I reckon we can get three little sections out of here. So slicing down firmly, and there we go. Got some nice little sandwiches there. My next sandwich is a tomato and cream cheese sandwich, and again I'm using vegan cream cheese because that's what I have here at home, but you could use regular cream cheese. And what I've done is I've cut my bread into circular rounds, and I did that just by using a cookie cutter. And then what I'm going to do is place a tomato on top. So I wanted them round so that the tomato would fit on top. And also it's just a little bit different to having the regular finger sandwiches. It looks really pretty. So I've got the vegan cream cheese. I've got some dill from before. I'm just going to put that into there. And again, I'm just going to mix this in. And I just love the freshness of dill, especially with cream cheese. And as you probably know from my other cooking videos, tomato is one of my favorite foods. So this is a very dream sandwich for me. Okay, so I'm just going to take the rounds and put a bit of the cheese on, like this. You can be generous with this. It's nice to have it extra filled. And then we're going to pop on the top. And finally, I might put some cream cheese on the top as well, a very thin layer. It will help the tomato to stick down too. And then popping the tomato on. And there you have a little tomato cream cheese sandwich, and that's very pretty and very nice. So that is a nice, easy, simple one for you. Egg and cress is one of those typical sandwiches that you would expect to find in a classic afternoon tea when you're visiting a beautiful hotel or a restaurant. So although I am a vegan, I really did want to include it in this video today to show you how they prepare it. Now, these eggs are from a friend of mine who has free-range chickens, so I've taken those from her. And we have vegan mayonnaise, so even though I would tell you to use regular mayonnaise, I just wanted to use what I had at home. So I had this in the fridge, so that's what I'm going to use today. Here I have 2 hard-boiled eggs, and what I've done is I have put them into a little saucepan. I've covered them with water, about 1 centimetre covered, and then I have let the water come to a boil. As soon as it's come to a boil, I've turned it right down to a simmer, and I have let them simmer for 7 minutes. Now they have totally cooled, and I am going to mash them and add the mayonnaise, and that is it. So let's do that. Now I will totally admit that egg is probably the thing that I miss the most, not eating meat or dairy or animal products. I used to love having eggs for breakfast, so I do miss that. And there isn't really any substitute. But that's okay. It's always good to have a little bit of restraint in our lives. It's just roughly chopped. You still want to leave some of the egg whites in there. You don't want to break them down too much because it's nice to have that texture. And now I've got, as I said, about 1 tablespoon of vegan mayo. And that is just going to stir through, and it will give you a paste. And it's that simple. And you can season with a little bit of salt and pepper. That's it. So I am going to spread this onto my sandwich. It's nice to have it in big chunks. So instead of using a knife, I'm just going to stick with a fork. There we go. And I'm going to sprinkle on some of this cress, watercress. I'm going to do, because this is the last piece of bread and it's the end, I'm going to put it face down so that we've got the nice consistency. And I'm taking off the crusts. And actually, if you can find very thick bread, it's always best to use that for your afternoon tea, because then you are going to get a much more thick sandwich that looks very, very elegant on your tea table. That's really nice. And we'll split this again. And it will ooze out of the sides, but that's absolutely fine. You can just put them back together once you have done them. So now we're going to bake a Victoria sponge cake, and this is one of my absolute favourites because it's very simple but deliciously satisfying, and with afternoon tea it's a real classic. And the good thing about this cake is that if you've never baked before, once you master this cake, and even if you don't know how to bake any other, if you know how to bake this, you've always got something to serve to your guests. And this cake, you can change the ingredients. For example, you could change the filling from jam to chocolate. You can always change up the cake to something else so that you've always got something different to serve. So if you don't know how to bake anything else, learn how to bake this, because it comes in really useful for a whole variety of other cakes. Now, this Victoria sponge cake of mine is a vegan recipe, and even though, as I've said before, that I'm not completely opposed to eating eggs if they're coming from a friend or if they're free range, I prefer this recipe without egg. It's one that I learned to make years ago when I first became vegan, and I've loved it ever since. It always turns out so moist and beautiful, so I don't see the need to add an egg. So to begin, we have our milk, and to that I am going to add a tablespoon of cider vinegar. And what this does is, it kind of is the egg substitute. So it gives the cake its richness, and it also gives a lot of flavour. And what we're going to do is, we're just going to let this curdle in the milk a little bit, just till it goes a little bit lumpy. And then we are going to take the dry ingredients, and actually all the ingredients, put them into the bowl, stir them round, put the milk on, and that is your cake. So today I'm not going to be using an electric whisk. I'm just going to be doing it by hand because I want to make my frosting in the mixer, and I really do not want to have any washing up to do. So I'm just going to do it by hand, and I'll do the frosting in the mixer, and that will make life incredibly much easier. Okay, so this milk I think is ready now. I've left it for about 3 minutes. And when I said curdled, I didn't mean literally let it curdle. It's just, it lets the milk go a little bit lumpy and a little bit, you can just tell that it doesn't look the way it usually does. And by the way, this is oat milk, so that's what I'm going to use. Now I'm going to take all of the ingredients together and mix them up. So we have self-raising flour, and this has been pre-sieved. So that's going in. Caster sugar. This is dairy-free butter. I've been using dairy-free butter since I've been a vegan, and I can't taste the difference between this and regular butter. So now I'm going to add the bicarbonate of soda. And finally, the vanilla extract. And I am going to whisk this up with my hand. So wish me luck. I'm probably going to be here for a long time, but that's okay. I'm in no rush. I'm really going to get this going. And we'll have the old-fashioned way of baking a cake. So I'm just mixing all these together quickly. And now I'm going to add in the milk and the vinegar. So now we're going to stir all of this up until we have a nice, smooth batter. So I think this is ready, and now I'm going to divide this batter between these 2 lined cake tins, and then they will go into the oven at 180 degrees for about 45 minutes. So let's go. 1, 2. I just do this by eye. I was never good at maths or science, so I don't have a logical brain. I'm not very good at estimating things. But I think I'm pretty adept at making cakes. You really don't need to use an electric mixer. It's sometimes best to do things the old-fashioned way, and that is the joy of baking. So I think that is that. I'm not going to obsess too much about whether they're both even. Pretty much looking the same. Yeah. And my favourite part. Okay. These are going to go into the oven. So while our cake is baking, we are going to get on with the frosting. And this is a very simple buttercream frosting, but it's what you would find in a classic Victoria sponge cake. So it's easy, delicious, simple. And what we do is we just take some icing sugar, some dairy-free butter, but you can use regular butter, and some vanilla extract, and we just whisk them together. It's really that easy. I don't bother whisking anything separately. I know sometimes people like to whisk the butter first to smooth it down. I just put everything in, and that is that, because that's what makes life so much easier. So I'm just going to start with the butter in there. Now the sugar. You have to be careful with this because it does create a big dust of sugar. As you can see. Ooh. And now some vanilla extract. And I am just going to whisk this together now, very simply. Start off slow because you do have this dust cloud otherwise, so we're going to start very slow. And when I can see that most of the sugar is incorporated into the butter, I can whiz it up. Okay, so that took less than a minute, no more, and it is ready. So you should have a really light, fluffy frosting, and that is really so simple but satisfying. So once our cake is ready and fully cooled, we will put on the frosting and it will almost be finished. So my cake has been out of the oven for about an hour and a half while I've been getting on with everything else, and now we are ready to frost and put the jam onto the cake, and it is done. So let's do it. So now I'm going to apply the jam to the cake, and in the recipe that I provided in the description I've listed it as strawberry jam, but I don't have any strawberry, so I'm just going to use what I've got, which is raspberry, and it's equally as delicious, so feel free to use whichever one you like. So I think sometimes a raspberry jam can be nicer because it's a bit more tart and it just gives a nicer flavour, especially because this is quite a simple cake. So again, I'm just spreading this all over the top of this layer. And that is the beauty of a Victoria sponge. It is very simple, but very satisfying. And I think that is ready. So I am going to put the layer on. And then to finish, I have some of the icing sugar that we use to make the frosting. And I am just going to put a little bit into a sieve and dust the cake like this. And this will keep in moisture and just make it taste even more delicious. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this video and it has inspired you to create even more your own tea party at home. And I just want to say that I do have a lot of messages and comments from people who say, thank you for your videos, they inspire me to take little moments of joy out of life and really focus on the small details. And I just want to say thank you from me to you, because these comments, these messages are what keep me going. These videos take me a long time in my week. They are very labor intensive. They may seem very simple and easy, but they take at least 3 days of the week. So it's hard work, but it really is worthwhile when I see that people are really, really enjoying them. So thank you to everybody who writes to me, who leaves me a comment. And I know that I do not respond to every single one. I try my best to get through many of them, but I do read them all. And I thank you because they keep me going and they keep me really inspired to carry on. So thank you. Next week's video, I want to show you how to create your own flower arrangement using store-bought flowers. So here in Edinburgh, all of the florists are closed now because of the lockdown. So the only place that we can get our flowers is from the supermarket. And I want to show you that with a little bit of thought and imagination, you can make supermarket flowers look like florists' flowers. So come back next week and we will do that together. In the meantime, have a really great week, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you again very soon.